Hey, my name is Wes Lindley. I'm 34 years old and I live in a low brick house at the bottom of Kettle Hollow Road, about 9 miles outside Marion, Virginia. It isn't much by anybody's measure. A carport with no car under it. A kitchen table my father built crooked that I never had the heart to level. A wood stove I don't burn because propane is easier. And a rural mail route I have driven for 9 years. Route 4. 61 boxes strung along 22 miles of hollow road, half of them leaning, most of them held up by a fence post and stubbornness. In April, a letter came into the Marion post office with my route number at the top and the words under review for consolidation underneath. 90 days, it said. 90 days is what they say when they mean gone. I read it standing up in the sorting room at 5 in the morning, and then I folded it into my back pocket and went and drove the route anyway, because the mail does not care what is in your pocket. People around here don't know my name so much as they know my truck. That suited me fine. I'm the man who slows at your box. And if your flag is up, I take what you're sending. And if your dog runs the fence line, I have a biscuit for him. And that has been the whole of our relationship for 9 years, and neither of us ever asked for more. My mother's name was Rita. She spent the last 14 months of her life in a facility outside Roanoke, 2 hours east, and I saw her on Sundays, because Sunday was the only day the route ever let go of me. Toward the end, she lost the days of the week. She lost the year. She never once lost the question. Every Sunday, before hello, before my name, did anything come for me? Not who came. What came? I'd bring the little stack from her old address, the church bulletin, the drugstore flyer, a card from a cousin in Ohio, and she'd hold it in both hands like it was warm. One Sunday in February, she said a thing to me plain, in a voice that still had all of her in it. She said, "The mail is the only thing left that still knows my name." 6 weeks later, she was gone. I went back to work on a Tuesday. And I have thought about that sentence at 61 mailboxes a day, every working day, for 4 years. There was a woman once, before all that, who wanted a man who came home before dark and stayed home after. I could manage the first half. So it's me and the truck and the hollow, and the quiet has never asked me a question I couldn't answer. Box 31 is the Cardwell box. It sits at the head of a gravel drive that climbs a 1/4 mile to a white farmhouse with a green tin roof, and it was Ada Cardwell's box before it was ever my route. Ada drove Bus 6 for the county for 31 years. Half the grown men in Smith County learned to sit down and hush from that woman. When the weather was fine, she'd come down the drive in her housecoat to meet me, and she'd ask after my knee, which I hurt one winter and mentioned to her exactly one time, in 2014. That April, Ada's mail started staying in the box. Not all of it. A day here, 2 days there. Then 4. When a box goes full, you notice it's the first thing they teach you and the last thing you forget. Circulars packed to the door, a water bill gone soft in the damp, a seed catalog curled around itself. And underneath all of it, 3 green certified cards with the stubs still attached, unsigned, from a company in Bristol called Ashford Fiduciary Group. Certified mail is a strange animal. Somebody wants a record that you were handed a thing. If nobody signs, it goes back where it came from, and the record says you weren't there. 3 of them had gone back already. That's the part that rode along with me the rest of the morning. Somebody in Bristol was building a stack of paper that said Ada Cardwell does not answer her mail. She was sitting on the tailgate of a gray hatchback at the head of the drive that next Thursday, and she stood up when she heard the truck. 29 or 30. Small teal scrubs, a hospital badge clipped at her hip, Dark hair pulled back so tight it looked like it hurt, and the kind of tired that sleep doesn't touch. She had a folded paper in her hand, and she'd been holding it long enough to soften the crease. I want to be honest about the next part. I almost drove past her. I had 30 boxes left, and a route that had already cost me the day. And a man learns early on this job that the fastest way to lose your footing is to step into somebody else's trouble. I had my own. I had a letter in my back pocket with 90 days written on it. But she came up off that tailgate like standing was a thing she'd had to decide to do first, and I had watched my mother make that same decision out of a chair by a window 14 months running, so I stopped. "You're the mail," she said. "Wes Lindley. Route 4. Junie Cardwell. Ada's my mother." She looked at the box, then up the drive, then at me, and she made herself say it. "I need to ask you for something, and I don't have anybody else to ask." I turned the truck off. That's not nothing, turning a mail truck off. It costs you the day. She held out the paper. It was a petition, filed in the circuit court in Marion. Ashford Fiduciary Group asked to be appointed emergency guardian and conservator of Ada Cardwell, 71, on the grounds that she was living alone in an isolated residence, unable to manage her affairs, at risk, with no daily contact or supervision by any person. Attached was a doctor's letter. And attached to the letter was a list of certified notices sent to the residents and returned unclaimed. "They're using their own letters," she said. "They mail her a thing she can't sign for, and when it comes back they write it down as proof nobody's home." "Where are you?" "Bristol, night shift, emergency department. 90 minutes down, 90 minutes back. I sleep from 10 in the morning to 5 at night if I sleep. I'm here every weekend, and I'm here on my off nights, and it doesn't matter. Because there's no such thing as proving weekends." Her voice went thin, and she pushed it back down and made it steady, and that took her about 4 seconds and cost her something. "They want the house. It's 41 acres, and it's paid for. That's all this is. What are you asking me for?" 10 minutes a day. She said it fast, like she'd rehearsed it in the car and wanted it out. "When you bring her mail. Stay 10 minutes. Make sure she ate something. Make sure the stove's off. Just so somebody sees her. Every day, on a record. 10 minutes a day. That's all I'm asking." And then quieter, barely above it, "Before they take her." A wind came down the hollow and turned the seed catalog over in the box. "Why me?" I said. "Because you're the only person on this road who already comes to her every single day," she said. "You just don't stay." I have thought since about how small a thing it was to ask a man for. 10 minutes. 10 minutes is what the whole rest of my life came up that road on. "I'll stay," I said. Ada Cardwell opened the door on my first 10 minutes with her hair set and her housecoat on, and a look that dared me to say why I was there. "You're the mail," she said. "Yes, ma'am." "Well, you're standing in it." Her kitchen was clean, and it was wrong in a way that took me 3 days to name. Not dirty, not dangerous, just stopped. A calendar on the wall with nothing written on any square. A coffee maker that had been on since morning and had cooked the pot down to tar. Toast in the toaster from a day that wasn't today. She poured me coffee I did not drink, and she asked after my knee, and she told me the names of every child who rode bus 6 in 1979, first name, last name, and which stop, and then she could not find the word for the toaster and called it the bread thing and got mad about it and then laughed at herself. That's what it was. The far things were bright as new paint. The near things swam. There is no petition in the world that can hold both of those facts at once, but a person can. Anybody can. You just have to be in the room. Day 2, I ate the toast. Day 4, I brought the mail up to the porch instead of leaving it, and she signed for a certified letter with the skinny plastic pen off my clipboard, and her hand went out from under her. Her knuckles are walnuts. Her fingers don't close on a thing that thin. The signature came off the line and wandered down onto the paper like a road on a map, and she looked at it a long moment, and then she said, "I used to have beautiful handwriting," and she said it to the door frame, not to me. I didn't say anything. There wasn't a thing worth saying. Next morning, I stopped at the drugstore on Main Street in Marion and bought a fat-barreled pen with a rubber grip for $1.99, and I put it in my shirt pocket, and at box 31 I climbed the drive and set it in her hand. "Try that one." She signed. Straight across, on the line, every letter of Ada June Cardwell where it belonged. She looked at it for a while. "Well," she said, "that was all." She kept the pen in a jelly jar by the door after that, and every certified letter that firm in Bristol sent her, she signed for on the line in a hand you could take to the bank. Junie started leaving a thermos on the porch rail before she drove back to Bristol. First it was just coffee. Then there was a note folded under the lid. "Stove knobs got stiff. She can't turn them. Don't tell her I told you." I wrote back on the back of it and put it in box 31 under the flag, because that's the mailbox I understood, and that is how the two of us courted for most of a summer. Her notes under a thermos lid at 6 in the morning. Mine in the box under a flag she'd find at 7 at night. She wrote, "She says you don't drink the coffee." I wrote, "I don't." She wrote, "Then why do you take the cup?" I wrote, "Because you washed it." 14 words a day, some days. I have never in my life said so much. The screen door had not latched since her father died, so I latched it. The second porch step had a soft place in it, and I put a new board in and painted it to match the old, which it never quite did, and Ada told everyone at the church supper that a man had come and rebuilt her whole porch. I mowed the yard on Saturdays. Junie caught me at it in July, standing in the drive with her keys in her hand and her mouth doing something complicated. "You're not being paid for this," she said. "No, why are you doing it?" So I told her about Rita. The 14 months. The Sundays. Did anything come for me? The mail is the only thing left that still knows my name. I told it flat. The way you tell a thing you've carried so long, it's gone smooth. Junie sat down on the new step. "You drove 2 hours every Sunday for 14 months, she said. "Sunday isn't every day." "No," she said. "It isn't." She looked up the drive at the house. "You're doing every day now." Her father was Dean Cardwell, and he hauled logs out of these mountains for 38 years and died 6 years ago on a Tuesday in his own driveway with the truck still running. He and Ada bought the 41 acres in 1976 on a loan from the bank in Marion and paid the last of it in 2002. And Ada framed the letter that said so, and it hangs in the hallway between the bathroom and the back bedroom where nobody outside the family would ever see it. That is what 41 paid for acres are worth to a firm in Bristol, and it is a different number entirely from what they are worth in that hallway. Junie told me the only thing her mother ever asked of her was that she not sell the place to anybody who'd call it a parcel. I won't tell the rest of it crooked, because the crooked version is not what saved her. Ada had bad days. On a Sunday night in August, I came up the road at 9 o'clock because Junie had a shift and I'd gotten into the habit, and Ada was standing at box 31 in the rain in her housecoat with the front door hanging open behind her, waiting on the mail. There is no mail on Sunday. She knew that better than I did. She'd driven a bus past that box on 1,000 Sundays. She looked at me and she was frightened, not of me. of the fact that she could feel the wrong shape of the evening and couldn't find where the wrong part was. I didn't correct her. I told her the truck ran late. I gave her a flyer out of my own car and walked her up the drive with my hand under her elbow, and we set the flyer on the counter, and I turned off the stove knob, which was on. I sat with her until the coffee was gone. Then I wrote it in the notebook. The date, the time, and the whole ugly middle of it, because a record you only keep on the good days isn't a record, it's an advertisement. Junie cried when I read it to her. Then she said, "Write all of them." I counted the days in the back of my delivery notebook. A tick and a slash. 5 to a bundle. On the 83rd day, Ada was in the front room with the window up, telling me about a boy named Curtis Pike who got sick on the bus in 1981, and how she'd pulled over at the low water bridge and sat with him until his color came back, and how his mother never knew and never needed to. 83 days, and every one of them scanned at box 31 by the little gray machine on my belt, because the machine scans everything, and the machine does not have an opinion. The 84th day the box was empty. Not empty like she'd taken the mail in, empty like nothing had come. There was a lockbox hanging on the gate, and a real estate sign wired to the fence with the flyer tube already full. And up at the head of the drive, the porch light was burning in the middle of a bright morning, which is a thing you only see when nobody is left in a house to turn it off. The order had been signed on a Friday, without a hearing, without Junie in the room. Emergency appointment. Ashford Fiduciary Group, temporary guardian and conservator of the person and the estate. Ada had been moved Saturday to a memory care residence outside Bristol, and the house went on the market Monday. The doctor's letter that carried the whole thing was 1 page. He'd seen her once. 11 minutes. By his own note. He wrote that she was disoriented to date and could not produce a legible signature. He was a man named Pruitt who did evaluations for the court by the stack, and 11 minutes is what he'd spent with a woman I'd spent 830. The man himself came out to the house that Thursday to meet the listing agent. Silver hair. Gray suit with no dust on it anywhere, which out here is its own kind of announcement. A leather folder under his arm and a voice like a warm bath. "You're the mail carrier," he said. "I'm the mail carrier. Then you understand the situation better than most. You deliver mail." He smiled at me with a great deal of patience. "Mr. Lindley, in my experience, the people who care the loudest are the ones who arrive the latest. I've been here every day since April. There's no person in her life with daily contact. That's the finding. It isn't my opinion. It's the record." He called to place the parcel twice while he stood in her yard. Then he got into his car and rolled the window down and gave me the last of it kindly, which is the part I still hear. "You're the mail." They held an open house on a Sunday in September. I stood in the yard with Junie and watched people we had known our whole lives walk through Ada Cardwell's rooms with their shoes on, opening her cabinets, stopping to read the framed letter in the hallway. The agent had set a bowl of mints on the kitchen table. Ashford stood on the porch step I had laid myself and shook hands as they came up. A man from over at Chilhowie asked Junie, friendly, with no meanness anywhere in him, whether the appliances conveyed. "That's my mother's kitchen," Junie said, "and she is not dead." She said it level, without one shake in it. The yard went quiet, and the man took his hat off and apologized and meant every word of it, and that was the worst part, that there was nobody standing there to be angry at. That is how a thing like this gets done. Not by monsters, by a nice Sunday, and a bowl of mints and 40 polite people in a woman's house while she sits in a room in Bristol wondering why nothing comes for her. My 90 days ran out that same week. Route 4 folded into Route 7, and they gave me the merged run out of Marion because I had the seniority, twice the road, and the same day to drive it in. So I lost the little gray machine and the truck and the reason to be on Kettle Hollow at all, and I went anyway in my own car after dark with a spiral notebook, because a thing you start on a record you finish on a record, even if the record is your own handwriting. Junie sat in her car in my carport the night the emergency order came through and did not cry, which was worse. The hearing was set 21 days out. Trish Nedry was the guardian ad litem, appointed by the court to look at the whole business with clear eyes, and she came to see me at the post office on a Tuesday with a legal pad. She was fair. That's the thing I want said. She wasn't bought and she wasn't cruel. She asked me who I was to the family. I'm the male, I said. She wrote that down. Her report went in 9 days later, and it said that Mrs. Cardwell had resided alone without daily supervision. She believed it, because it was written down in 3 places by people with letterhead, and nobody with letterhead had ever once driven Kettle Hollow Road at 11:10 in the morning. Hattie Voss ran the Marion Post Office for 32 years before she retired to a house full of ferns. I sat at her kitchen table with a legal pad of my own. Certified out of Bristol, she said. Say the name again. I said it. She went quiet the way people do when a thing they've seen a dozen times finally lines up in a row. Do you know how many old people on rural routes I've watched get papered? She said. We spent 4 evenings on it. 7 addresses in 4 years. Every one of them an elderly person living alone on a rural route with a paid-off place. Every one of them the same run of certified letters from the same firm. Every one of them a guardianship, and then a house sold, and every single one of those 7 houses bought by an outfit called Cobb Ridge Holdings. And that's where being the male turned out to be worth something after all. Ashford Fiduciary Group, Post Office Box 294, Bristol, Cobb Ridge Holdings, Post Office Box 294, Bristol, the same box, the same key. A lawyer reads a company name, a carrier reads a box number, and to a man who sorted mail for 9 years, a box number is a face. He'd been buying the houses from himself. Then I asked for my own delivery scans, which anybody can, and they came back on paper an inch thick. 83 consecutive days at Box 31, time-stamped, geo-stamped, the government's own machine keeping its own dumb honest count. And beside every one of them the next scan, Box 32, 1 mile up the road, 4 minutes of driving. 11 minutes average between them. 83 days of a 7-minute hole in my own workday, and every hole in it was a woman's kitchen. It rained the night before the hearing. Junie and I sat on Ada's dark porch with the house locked behind us and the lockbox on the gate, and down at the bottom of the drive the flag on Box 31 was standing straight up because she had gone down and put a note in it for me the way she had all summer, for a woman who wasn't in the house anymore. If we lose tomorrow, I said, I'm still coming up this road. To an empty house? To you. She stood up off the step, and the rain came off the tin roof between us, and she kissed me. And I had gone 34 years without ever once being where I was supposed to be at the moment I was supposed to be there. And then I was. The circuit courtroom in Marion holds about 90 people. 91 showed. They came in with their hats off. A man from the tire place, 2 sisters who run the flower shop, a deputy off duty, a farmer who parked a truck across 2 spaces, a school principal, a woman who had to be helped up the steps. Every one of them had ridden Bus 6. Judge Marion Boyle looked at that room for a long moment over her glasses, and then She looked at the file, and I think she understood the whole case before anybody said a word. Pruitt testified first. He had 6 evaluations in his bag for that afternoon. Junie's lawyer asked him how long he'd spent with Ada Cardwell, and he said 11 minutes, because it was in his own note and he had no place to go with it. She asked him whether he had reviewed the medical chart. He had not. She asked him to read aloud the sentence about the illegible signature, and he read it. And then she asked him what kind of pen he had handed her, and the courtroom got so quiet you could hear the radiator. He said he did not recall. Trish Nedry took the stand next, and she did not wait to be asked. I filed a report that said Mrs. Cardwell had no daily supervision, she said. That finding is in my report, and my name is on it. I have since reviewed the delivery records and interviewed people on that road, and I want it on the record that I was wrong. I wrote down what the paperwork told me instead of what the road told me. I'm asking the court to strike it. Then it was me. I said what I was, which was the mail. I said the box went full in April, and that a full box is the first thing they teach you. I put in the scan log, 83 days of it, and the 7-minute holes. I put in the certified cards, 83 of them, Ada June Cardwell in a hand you could take to the bank, on the line, every time, from the day somebody gave her a pen she could hold. I put in Hattie's 7 addresses and the 2 company names and the 1 post office box in Bristol they both came home to. And I put in the notebook, all of it, including the Sunday night in August in the rain, because Junie had told me to write all of them. Ashford's attorney read that page aloud to the room like he had found it himself. He asked me whether a woman who stands at a mailbox on a Sunday night in her housecoat is able to care for herself alone. I said no. I said she has never once been alone. That is the whole difference between us and them, and it is the only thing this case was ever about. Ashford's attorney objected to the box number twice, and the judge let it in both times. And then the lawyer asked me why a man who wasn't kin drove a road he no longer worked, and I said the only true thing I had. Nobody disappears all at once, Your Honor. They disappear one uncollected letter at a time. I just happened to be the one who could see the count. Judge Boyle asked whether Mrs. Cardwell was present. She was, in the second row in her good coat, between the 2 flower shop sisters. The judge asked her to come up and asked her, gently, if she would sign her name. The bailiff put a clipboard in front of her with a skinny plastic pen clipped to it, and I stood up in a courtroom, which I had no business doing, and I said, Your Honor, may she use her own pen. Junie had it in her purse. It came up the aisle hand to hand, past the tire man and the deputy and the principal, that fat barrel $1.99 pen with the rubber grip, and Ada Cardwell took it and looked at it and set the tip on the line and wrote her whole name, straight across, the way she had written it on 31 years of bus manifests. The judge looked at it for a while. Then she turned it around so the room could see. It took her 11 minutes to rule, which is a number I will enjoy for the rest of my life. The emergency order was vacated. The petition for guardianship was dismissed with prejudice. The appointment of Ashford Fiduciary Group was terminated. The listing was rescinded before it ever closed, and the whole file went over to the Commonwealth's attorney along with Hattie's 7 addresses. Corbin Ashford walked out of that courtroom through 91 people who had ridden Bus 6, and not one of them said a word to him. And that was the loudest thing I have ever heard. The state revoked his fiduciary license in the fall, and the other 7 files were reopened, and 2 of those houses went back to the families they were taken from. Pruitt's evaluations got pulled out of 6 pending cases that same month, and he surrendered his contract with the court before they could take it, which is the closest that man will ever come to signing an honest document. 11 months later, Ada Cardwell is in her own front room with the window up, telling anyone who slows down enough about a boy named Curtis Pike who got sick on Bus 6 in 1981. Junie moved to days at the hospital in Marion, 12 minutes from the farmhouse, and she is a different woman with sleep in her. I drive the merged route out of Marion now, and it is twice the road, and I get home well after dark. There was a woman once who wanted a man who came home before dark. I still don't. It turns out that was never the part that mattered. What mattered was whether anybody was up. We were married on that porch in October with the leaves going, and Ada signed the license as our witness in the jelly jar pen, straight across, on the line. She keeps that pen where she has always kept it, by the door, and every morning she walks down the quarter-mile of gravel in her housecoat and puts something in box 31 and stands the flag up so the world knows there's mail going out of that house. From a woman who is still in it. I spent 9 years believing my job was to carry what other people wrote. It took a tired woman in scrubs standing at the head of a drive asking me for 10 minutes to teach me that the 10 minutes were the letter. Everything else was only paper.